Is 9 o'clock, so we will call this meeting to order. As it's our tradition, I'm gonna go ahead and read the mission statement. And that is that the Texas State Board of Pharmacy, as a leader in protecting the public health of the citizens of Texas, shall uphold quality standards for licensing and facilitate regulation that promotes innovative, multidisciplinary, and collaborative practices and education which produce quality care and positive patient outcomes. We did want to go ahead and give you a little bit of housekeeping with this new room. So one thing is that the room has microphones all over the place. We are live streaming, and the cameras will pick up any conversation. That includes the audience. So be aware that sidebar conversations could be picked up by microphones. You could end up on the camera. So we just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of those logistics. There is Wi-Fi, and I believe that it is posted. The other thing to be aware of is the restrooms are down by the elevator around the corner, but you do need a code to get into the restroom. And they are posted around the room on little signs like this. So just be aware that you will need that code as well. And with that, I will. Yeah, there's 2 empty chairs. There's one here. There's one on the second row there.
There's one on the front row, one on the second row.
And with that, I will turn it over to Tim for roll call.
Awesome, thank you. President Spear,
Here.
Board Member Montemayor,
Here.
Board Member Tiarina,
Here.
Board Member Yocum.
Here.
Board Member Miller,
Here.
Board Member Shaw.
Here.
Board Member Tisch,
Here.
Board Member Hinkie.
Here.
Board Member Lewis,
Here.
Board Member Fernandez.
Here.
And Board Member Guerrero. We have a quorum, and Daniel Guerrero is not here yet, but will join us later in the morning.
All right, thank you. And then for continuing education, be aware of the fact that I believe the QR codes are posted,
Will be later.
or they will be later. You do need to stay for the entire meeting for your 3 hours, but we will go ahead and post those. And with that, I know everyone received the minutes and will have reviewed them. So I'd like to see if there are any corrections, and if not, if there is a motion for the minutes.
I have reviewed the minutes and would like to make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion from Lori and a second from Donnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes have passed. All right, with that, we will ask John to come forward.
Good morning.
Good morning, John.
All right. Let's talk about rules. In the rule PDFs that you've been provided, there are bookmarks with links, lines with edits. Also, for the rules for adoption, you have received copies of the orders and preambles in the OneDrive link that was sent to you, and you have them on your computers in front of you. Starting with the rules for adoption. All the rules up for adoption were proposed at the August 2nd, 2022 board meeting, and they were published in September 9th, 2022 issue of the Texas Register. The first rule, item C1, regards return of prescription drugs. And this actually looks at 2 rules, 291.8 and 291.33. These rule changes, were recommended by the governor's office, and board staff coordinated with the governor's office staff to draft these amendments. These amendments simply reference exceptions that are contained in the Health and Safety Code for the return of prescription drugs. So the first change is on line 44. It removes an old citation to the Health and Safety Code. And then on line 48, it adds references to chapter 431, which is the drug donation program, and 442, which regards the donation of prescription drugs, both under the Health and Safety Code. Those are exceptions to accepting returned drugs and the redistribution of returned drugs. For C.1.1.2, this is 291.33 regarding operational standards concerning returning undelivered medication to stock. For this rule, line 532 removes an old citation to the Health and Safety Code, and lines 535 through 36 add references to chapter 431 and 442 of the Health and Safety Code. Again, those are exceptions to accepting returned drugs and the redistribution of returned drugs. Also for these rules, you're going to find some grammatical corrections made throughout. And we did receive one comment from MetaCircle in support of both of the amendments to these rules.
All right, so these rules are for final adoption. Do I have a motion to adopt? A motion from Don to adopt,
Second.
and a second from Rick. All those in favor of adoption?
Aye.
Any opposed? Rule carries. John?
Our next rule is item C.1.2. This is regarding Rule 291.73 concerning personnel in Class C pharmacies. This issue was identified by board staff, and in Class C personnel in facilities with 100 beds or less, there's a requirement of being physically present for supervision, also a list of functions, and there's an exception for techs to perform approved duties. The problem is there was the wrong citation. So now on line 235, see the correction, which amends the reference to 562.1011 as opposed to 552.1011 of the Act. There are also some grammatical corrections, and no comments were received regarding the adoption of this rule.
All right, do we have a motion to adopt? We have a motion from Donna. Do we have a second? We have a second from Rick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The rule carries.
The next item is C.1.3, and for these two rules, these issues were identified by board staff to address a requirement of House Bill 2059, 86 legislature. That was in 2019. What that did was required healthcare professionals, including pharmacists and pharmacy technicians, to complete a human trafficking prevention course for renewals. There is a copy of the Texas Occupations Code, Chapter 116, attached behind C.1.3. And this requirement for this course does not have an expiration date. So the first one, C.1.3.1, regarding Rule 295.8, regarding continuing education requirements. I will say for both of these rules, because license renewals that fell after the law changed have now passed, the previous language was for clarity in the rule that the course was required for those renewals. And the proposed language for adoption today would reflect the ongoing requirement of the law for the course for each subsequent renewal. So the first one for 295.8 for pharmacists, looking at line 114, you'll see it removes the limitation that the requirement for the human trafficking prevention course is just for renewals received after August 31st, 2020, and before September 1st, 2022. And it simply removes that time period because there is not an expiration date. The next change is on this item C.1.3.2 regarding Rule 297.8. Continuing education requirements. This is for technicians. On line 71, you're going to see it removes the limitation that the requirement for human trafficking prevention course just for renewals received after August 31st, 2020 and before September 1st, 2022. And it removes that time period again because there is not an expiration date. And we did not receive any comments on the changes to either of these rules.
All right. We have a motion. Adopt. I have a motion to adopt from Don. Second. Second from Suzette. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, John, will you take us through our motions to propose?
So looking at C2, the rules for proposal, C.2.1, first rule up is 291.76. It's for Class C pharmacies located in a freestanding ambulatory surgical center. And here you're going to see that on line 556, it adds the words by a pharmacist to verifying the perpetual inventory of controlled substances listed in Schedules 2 through 5 at an ambulatory surgical center. And what this does is it clarifies that a pharmacist, an actual pharmacist, must perform the verification and reconciliation of the perpetual inventory of controlled substances for an ASC pharmacy.
All right, I believe we have a public comment.
Is this a safe chair now?
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
Safe chair.
Where's Warren?
Chris Dimney, I'm a consultant pharmacist for ASCs, so I'm concerned about the wording and interpretation of this. Does this mean that we're requiring, ambulatory surgery centers are required by rule to keep a continual inventory? There's also a requirement that every removal from inventory must be documented. Each administration has to be documented. That is something that definitely reconcile every week. I don't think it should be required to be reconciled by a pharmacist. As a PIC, if I want to delegate that to a technician or to the nurses, I'm still responsible. But what I'm more concerned about is, does this rule, will the interpretation be that the controlled substance inventories shall be verified by the pharmacist? Does that mean I have to count all the controlled substances in the facility each week? If that's what it means, that's a huge problem, because I have facilities that store controlled substances in each OR. You're going to require me to go into the OR each week during the middles of surgery? That's,
I believe it's just a clarification, and Megan, can you give us?
That was the intention of it, was for it to be a clarification. So this came from a pharmacist who sent it to compliance. And it was just to clarify what's already existent, that the pharmacist is the one who verifies. I don't think the intention was for him to go inside an operating room during surgery.
so this does not mean that we have to verify and reconcile the count. Beware the rule of unintended consequences, because if that's what it means, that's a huge change to my practice. I don't count every week. The nurses count twice a day, every morning and every evening. I trust them to do the count. If we're not trusting them to handle controlled substances, then what are we doing? I also don't think that we really need bright line regulation to control every aspect of the way the consultant does his job. If I choose that I'm going to bring a pharmacy technician with me to do that reconciliation, is that a problem? I mean, in this instance, all we're being is forensic accountants. There's no special training in pharmacy school that says, well, only you can reconcile that 8 fentanyl were removed from inventory, and there are 8 fentanyl that are documented as administered. So
Chris, would you have a recommendation for what it would say? What's another option?
there's no need to add this at all. All it does is narrow exactly how we have to do our job and exactly how I comply with the existing rules. And the controlled substance rules are very specific. There are 9 items required every time a controlled substance was administered. And I can list them for you, but you don't want to do that.
But when I read it, I think verified, to me, didn't mean have to do it.
Yeah.
It's verified that it's being done by somebody in the facility, right?
This says verified by a pharmacist, and that
It's
is,
verified that it's been complete and reconciled. It didn't say
Does
They're
it
actually the
connect it?
one doing
that
it.
to
That's-
be done physically by that pharmacist. I guess that's what I read it when I read it the first time.
pharmacy shall maintain a perpetual inventory of controlled substances listed, which shall be verified by a pharmacist.
For
completeness.
For
Yeah,
completeness.
so if
Completeness does not mean
you
that,
gotta do it. Just
that I
make sure
have
it's
to,
being done.
that completeness, reconciling for completeness does not mean that I have to count and reconcile the continual inventory against there.
That's not the way I read it either.
Okay,
As far as,
good.
as far as interpretation, as far as the way we will be
Okay,
going into your facility, we're gonna look and make sure that there's a perpetual inventory been done and that it's complete and reconciled.
right. Oh,
It didn't say,
it's certainly my responsibility to make sure that's done,
yeah,
but it's not,
it didn't say must perform by, I think that's what would be a very different thing.
And I think if you look at, and I know you don't have the full rule, but if you look down at line 653, it puts it in line with the other tasks. So 653, which is Roman numeral I, it says a pharmacist shall verify that the controlled substance listed in the invoices were added to the pharmacy's perpetual inventory. So it doesn't, again, it's not saying
that is a great rule, but it is completely different from what we're talking here. I'm obviously responsible for all the controlled substances that are shipped to that facility, and I'm by rule required to sign off on every controlled substance invoice. And I do that when I make sure those controlled substances are added to the continual inventory. But the perpetual inventory, many more entries are made for removal because they're being removed one at a time. Fentanyl's added 100 at a time, but it is removed 1 or 2 at a time by patient. So I personally, I think that addition is unnecessary because I'm already responsible for doing that. And I don't think that a pharmacist has to do that part.
But you would verify that it's being done.
Right.
And you said that. And so that's really all this is saying.
I use that keyword verified.
Mhm.
How much
If a
should we place
pharmacist
it?
must verify it for completeness, does that mean, all right, if that's the interpretation,
It doesn't mean conduct, it just means that it'll be verified that it
Could be
was,
oversight.
that it was done and that you have oversight.
if that's not changing anything we're already doing, then I'm up here talking for no reason.
I don't believe that it is.
But beware, I just don't want compliance people in 5 years saying, well, look at this. You have to count every week because that's useless. If we don't trust the nurses to count twice a week, then,
Just have them blow the recording.
pardon me,
Have them blow the recording. Okay.
it's, be aware of unintended consequences. Okay, and that will be part of the minutes. So hopefully I'm not doing this in 5 years. When we go back and say, that was not the intention of the board.
Thank you. Chris.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Comments from the board, further discussion?
So where did that change come from again?
A pharmacist brought it to the attention of some of our compliance staff and they handed it over to us. Because there, in other areas, it does say, by a pharmacist. And so for some of the dangerous drugs and the records and everything, it says verified by a pharmacist. And this was one instance where the verified didn't say by a pharmacist. So they just wanted to clarify and keep it consistent through the rules that all of it's verified by a pharmacist.
So prior to it
That
just
makes sense.
said, which shall be
Yeah.
verified for completeness and reconciled at least once a week.
From my perspective, my staff, if they walk in and they say, Pharmacist Yoakum, has this been done? And you go, I don't know, then I have a problem.
There's a
with
problem,
that.
right?
And what this says to me is that the pharmacist has been involved and verified that it's been done.
Right.
You have knowledge of it.
So that's why we added it. I don't think it's necessary, then vote against it. I mean, I can see it either way. My staff's going to enforce it that the pharmacist has been involved, whether it's by a pharmacist or not, because the pharmacist is the one that's ultimately responsible at the end of the day. We felt like this cleaned it up and made it where it was very clear that the pharmacist was responsible for the verification. Not counting every week, none of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Have there been issues of a pharmacist not?
We had a pharmacist that questioned it, and that's where we took it from.
Okay.
But stating the obvious, but clarity.
Right.
That's it.
What is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to adopt it.
We're gonna make a motion to propose. It must be
Motion to
proposed
propose.
first.
Saying right here.
All right, so we have a motion to propose. Do we have a second? We have a second from Rick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries them through. All right, John.
Alright, our next item is C.2.2. This is regarding Rule 291-104 regarding non-resident pharmacies, Class C operational standards. And when you look at this, you're going to see line 78, and it adds the word license. And this is simply cleanup. And it requires a Class E pharmacy to obtain a Class ES pharmacy license before engaging in sterile compounding. And what this is correcting a drafting error by adding an omitted word.
Pretty simple. Any comments? We have a motion to propose.
Motion proposed.
I have a motion here from Rick, second from Bradley, I think I heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, John.
Our next item is C.2.3. That regards Rule 303.1, destruction of dispensed drugs. This relates to healthcare institutions such as hospitals and long-term care facilities. And on line 48, you're going to see it allows a consultant pharmacist to destroy controlled substances that are commingled with dangerous drugs in a shared container as allowed by federal law and DEA rules. Then on lines 56 through 67, it removes inventory requirements and verification requirements of a consultant pharmacist when disposing of dangerous drugs that are not commingled with controlled substances. So what this does is it removes the inventory requirement for destruction using a waste disposal service of dangerous drugs dispensed in healthcare facilities or institutions, and clarifies dangerous drugs may be commingled with controlled substances in a shared container prior to destruction, as allowed by federal laws and regulations.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
And John, what is the origin of this?
Megan?
So we received an email about this, so what we're talking about with this one is the third-party waste disposal services in the healthcare facilities. And it seems like we were putting more requirements on dangerous drugs than we were on controls. In all honesty, we don't know for sure, but we think when the federal law changed, we missed this part of the rule to make it, the same as federal. So it is a little wonky that we would require more for dangerous drugs than we would controls.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the other thing that it does with this cleanup is if the rules change, we will not have to go back and change those. It'll just stay in compliance with, or in line with what changes.
That's the hope, yes. The hope. We're taking out all that inventory listing in here.
Do we have a motion to propose? I have a motion to propose from Don. Second from Donnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion to propose goes forward. John?
All right, our next one is C.2.4. It's regarding Rule 315.6, pharmacy responsibility and electronic reporting. On line 6, you're going to see that this is regarding PMP reporting requirements. And what it does is adds language requiring pharmacies to electronically submit to the board any data elements as indicated as required by the board's data submission guidelines. And on lines 8 through 20, it then removes the specific requirements because now, under this proposed rule, now a pharmacy would just be required to comply with the board's data submission guidelines. And the guidelines will have the specific requirements in them. And this keeps us from having to change the rule every time we change the guidelines.
All right, I do believe that we have somebody from public, Peggy Schuchart. And I'm sure I'm butchering that name and I apologize. Ms. Schuchart? I will assume that she has not come. Board members, what is your pleasure on this?
I have a question.
Yes.
From the PMP, we had an issue on one of our informal conferences in the last period where if a pharmacist does not go to 2 steps on the PMP, it's not recorded. Has that been corrected? I mean, I think you have to actually pull up the patient and then you have to click on another thing
View report.
to view report, even though you're seeing the report.
No,
You're seeing a score.
you're seeing the March care score.
Okay.
The view report brings up the patient profile.
Remember, we had that one case where they didn't do that and it's not recording it.
Right.
Is this, on this submission guide, does it explain actually what that is on, when the pharmacist looks at that guide to do all these steps?
It's gonna be slightly different, and we might pick this back up on a later discussion item
Okay.
for the update on the PMP. So
Okay,
the
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
No, you're fine. The submission guide is more about the pharmacy submitting the information. to the
Okay.
PMP.
What
Not
required.
actually, okay.
Yeah, there's gonna be a different one that's gonna explain, the lookup steps and things like that. But yes, there is guidance out there about how to do a lookup.
Okay,
This is about them submitting that raw data.
okay,
And so when the state auditor's office was looking at our things, there were some items that they recommended adding. And so
Okay.
instead of just adding to this long list, we're just gonna have them refer to the
got it. Okay. Thank you,
Any other questions, comments?
thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have a motion to propose? Got a motion to propose from Lori and a second from Rick Tisch. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, John, you want to take us through C3?
And C3 is our rule review plan for fiscal year 2022 through 2025. And state law requires you to review the rules on a 4-year cycle. And while it requires you to review the rules on this 4-year cycle, what you're looking to see is if you still need these rules. It's not about content of the rules. So up for proposal this time, we have C.3.1.1, which has certain sections of Chapter 291 that concerns pharmacies, all classes of pharmacies. And on C.3.1.2, we have some additional sections of Chapter 291 concerning pharmacies, and these are clinic pharmacies or Class D pharmacies.
And again, this is not content, it's just whether or not we move through these rules. Do we have a motion?
Oh,
Rick Tisch has made a motion. Do we have a second? Donna has a second. All those in favor?
hi.
Any opposed? All right, John. Thank you, sir. On the agenda, we're going to drop down to E2, and I would ask Raquel to come forward. And Ms. Caroline. Raquel, you can come up and have a seat too, rather than standing. All right, Ms. Caroline, you want to take us through some numbers first?
Yes, ma'am. All right, we're at E.2, and E.2.1 is board staff's chart that you're familiar with regarding the individuals participating in the peer assistance program. The chart for the November board meeting does conclude fiscal year 22, and so it has a comparison of the completion rate of individuals who participated throughout fiscal year 22, comparing the last 3 fiscal years. At the bottom of the chart is the start of, well, it completes the FY22 by quarter. And so you're looking at, we're reporting for you not only the total FY22, but completes the 4th quarter for that fiscal year.
Any questions from Ms. Caroline? All right, Mr. Pitt.
Right. Good morning, Madam President, members of the board and staff. My name is Raquel Liel, and I am the director for the Professional Recovery Network. And I'm here this morning to present to the board fiscal year 23's first quarter. Throughout the fiscal year 22, PRN has received a steady number of referrals regarding pharmacy, potentially impaired pharmacy professionals comparable to fiscal 20 and fiscal year 21. Compliance by current participants is acceptable, and all concerns regarding public safety have been reported to TSVP. Moving on to the program visibility and pharmacy school outreach, PRN has had many exciting program awareness opportunities this quarter. On August 11th, 2022, PRN presented to the incoming pharmacy students as part of their new student orientation at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center School of Pharmacy in Amarillo. PRN discussed mental health and substance use statistics, as well as services and support that PRN provides for healthcare professionals in Texas. And on August 18, 2022, PRN spoke to the incoming P1 student pharmacists, as well as the P3 students as part of orientation week at the University of Texas at Tyler College of Pharmacy. At this presentation, PRN discussed PRN's history, as well as the services that we provide and mental health and substance abuse statistics for adults and healthcare professionals in the United States. PRN is in the process of reaching out to the pharmacy schools that we have not yet been able to present to, and we're confident that as schools transition back to in-person classes, this will allow for more opportunities for PRN to be present and to bring program awareness and visibility for PRN altogether. Moving on to seminar, PRN's fall seminar was scheduled for this past Saturday, October 29th at Norris Conference Center in Austin, Texas. The details regarding the seminar will be made available to the board at the next quarter report. PRN's advisory committee also met the morning of the fall seminar at Norris Conference Center in Austin, and the advisory committee meets biannually to offer administrative guidance in the operation of PRN. The advisory committee's goal is to assist PRN in growing and offering supportive services through the use of advocacy, communication, as well as education. PRN's fiscal year 22 performance audit. In September, we conducted its annual performance audit, which covers September 1, 2021 to August 31st, 2022. And this performance audit measures exclude pharmacists and pharmacy interns who are also being monitored by TSVP. And the numbers include only licensed pharmacists and licensed pharmacy interns who are volunteer participants in PRN. This performance audit reviewed data on 3 different key items. The first is the total number of participants in the PRN program who hold a pharmacist license or pharmacy internship license and are enrolled in PRN. The second is the recidivism rate, which is defined as the percentage of individuals who experience a relapse 3 years after successfully completing their first year of sobriety while enrolled in PRN. And the third key item is the 1-year completion rate, which is defined as the percentage of individuals who successfully completed their first year of sobriety while enrolled in PRN. The audit results show as the following: licensed pharmacists enrolled in PRN, 33. Licensed pharmacy interns enrolled in PRN, 6. The recidivism rate for fiscal year 2022 is 12.5%, while the 1-year completion rate for fiscal year 2022 is 60%. In comparison to the last year's audit, recidivism rate almost doubled in fiscal year 2022, and PRN believes that this increase is due to the fact that participant support has been made available online. And while many of us know that online supports can be really convenient as a way to connect to each other, this is also something that there are a lot of things that can be overlooked with this type of support, right? And so PRN is addressing this issue by having supportive services transition back to in-person meetings and in-person treatment options rather than online. In regards to the 1-year completion rate, there were nearly 20% less completion this fiscal year compared to last fiscal year. And again, PRN believes that this decrease in the rate is due to the pandemic-related issues involving the type of meetings and supports that are provided to participants. Moving on to the next section of the report are the LBB numbers. The LBB numbers for September 1, 2021 to August 31st, 2022 were submitted to TSVP on September 9th, 2022, and the LBB numbers include all licensed pharmacists and pharmacy students enrolled in the PRN program. The numbers are as follows: volunteer pharmacy students showing us 6, board-ordered pharmacy students showing us 3, volunteer pharmacists showing us 33, and board-ordered pharmacists showing us 42. Now, on the last page of the report, you'll find the financials, again, covering costs between September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2022. Are there any questions that I could help answer?
I have a question. Excuse me, with regards to recidivism and completion, obviously these numbers have moved. Is that the trend in this field?
Yes.
Are we like on trend? Are we too low, too high?
Yes, it's comparable to across the nation with different states that I've looked at and their peer support services, specifically for pharmacists. It seems that there's been this trend that can contribute to the factors that I mentioned with online supports. We feel like that's a big factor as to why this trend has been occurring.
Any other questions for them? Or how we greatly appreciate all that you do for the board and for the citizens of Texas through your actions and your staff. We're very, very appreciative of all that you do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, we will go back in the agenda to D. I believe Tim has the first.
The compounding advisory group has not met since our last meeting. We still have that group together if we were to need them in the future, but we have not met.
Well, that is, I'll invite Ms. Linda forward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So currently, the Prescription Monitoring Program Advisory Committee has our next meeting scheduled on December 1st.
Next.
And for the Interagency Prescription Monitoring Program Work Group, currently we are evaluating and do not have a meeting scheduled at this time.
All right, do you have any questions from Ms. Linda as far as these two items? All right, thank you. So I will, with the heavy heart, say that Ann Dew is no longer with us. She was offered a position that, was best for her family. And so we want to really, as a board, publicly thank her for everything that she has done for us and that she's left us in really a good place as far as our financial statements. So I'm going to invite Tim to go through our finances.
Bear with me. I'm now in charge of the finances for the agency with the help of 4 wonderful people in the department. Ann did do a fantastic job, and I appreciate yours. I mean, she was saying that we do miss Ann, but it was a huge opportunity for her. In E.1.1, the first slide, you will find the summary data of the finance operations of our agency from 9/1/21 through 8/31/22. We were appropriated $10.1 million in AY 2022 by the legislature, and through the end of fourth quarter, we spent $8.9 million, 96% of our annual budget. Salaries, wages, and other personnel costs make up approximately 60% of our annual budget. On the second slide, you will see how all the expenses are broken down into the various LBB expense categories. In E.1.2, you will see the travel budget for our board members. We budgeted $15,000 for travel to Austin for regularly held board meetings. And through the end of the fourth quarter, approximately $7,600 was spent. We also budgeted $1,500 for out-of-state conference meetings, and as of 8/31/22, $1,400 was spent. In E.1.3, material changes to the contracts for goods and services, you will see a list of changes to 6 contracts for a term ending on 8/31/2023. And then E.1.4, we're all learning together with our LAR. We have new LBB analyst, and he is delightful to work with, but he's new and he doesn't understand some of our complex programs. He's asking lots and lots of questions. We're getting lots of phone calls. And we're trying to be a resource to him and his number two in that department. Things are going good there. I hope to have a really good report for y'all at the next board meeting. We hired an augmentation staff person in IT that has been rewriting the RxPad program that all of you have heard us talk about, that was written many years ago by a very capable individual, but it has no documentation, so we can't fix it. When it goes down, it may be down for 3 weeks. And if you remember from our LAR request, that was about $1 million of our LAR request. And if everything goes right, we may have gotten that fixed for maybe 50,000.
Right.
And we hope to know that at the end of the week. So it was supposed to be delivered yesterday or today, and we're gonna test it. And if it works, then I will be coming back to you and letting you know good news, and then making a request for a change there. So stay tuned. It may not be a fix, but we are working very hard in that area. Our staff is learning about the LAR process, and our LBB analysts have been very, very helpful. We also lost our governor's liaison, so we're training lots of new people about what we do at the Fort Pharmacy and how we take great care of the citizens of Texas. Madam President, I will try my best to answer questions, and if I can't answer them, we will get back with you with the right answers.
All right, are there any questions regarding finances?
I just had a question. This is our first meeting since we moved into the new building. Is this a good time do we have any update? I mean, the population here probably doesn't know we moved in.
It's on the agenda
We
later.
do- Yeah, we do have it on the
And
agenda.
Miss Ann, the expert's gonna talk about that when we get to that
Perfect,
point.
very good. I don't know if financially, if we needed to add it here, if there's anything we need.
Not at this point, everything's good.
Yeah, I think the one thing to note is, as you're looking through, because we are looking at a full year now, we can see that, the staff are very good stewards of the budget, and of the money that's allotted to them.
And taught us very good habits, and we're gonna continue forward with those habits. And one good thing that all of you as a board will appreciate, Ann has empowered her staff to do some really neat new things and challenged them to use their abilities. So she left us in really good shape, and she left me a big stack for her predecessor that I have in hiding in my office. So we're ready for the next person as well.
Good, thank you.
Just a quick question on the other personal costs, the one-time merit, is that something that we do annually, or is that something that we just did?
It all
based on-
depends on if there are any funds left at the end of the
So
fiscal
we were
year.
able to.
We were able to this year. Yes. A small way to say thank you to a staff that works very hard that we definitely do not pay.
Yeah, especially with the move and everything.
Yeah.
So we did put money back into general funds. If you're wondering where that money goes, it does go back to the state for general.
And they did sweep it.
And I believe we need to approve the finances.
Move to approve the finances as presented.
All right, we have a motion to approve with a second from Bonnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, sounds. All right, with that, it will take us down to E3, and we'll invite Ms. Linda to come back.
Okay, good morning again. Everyone should have in their notebooks our prescription monitoring program stat sheet for the fourth quarter. Just some of the brief highlights. There were 8.78 million controlled substances that were reported to the PMP this past quarter. we have it now a total of registered users of just over 175,000. There were also 62.82 million searches that were conducted through integration. Not yet updated because in September, we recently started data sharing with Florida. So that will be reflected on our next quarterly stat sheet. You'll see them added to them now. And that's information.
Donnie, did you have a question as far as?
Well, about the, there was some confusion on when someone actually does call in, or not call in, but fill up a patient, and how that's actually recorded. And we had that in one of our informal conferences. So we just wanted to verify, when they fill up a patient, that there's a view profile, I think is what it says.
View report.
View
Right.
report. If you don't click on that, it doesn't really calculate for that pharmacy. But some people were confused about, maybe their software didn't do that right or something. And then they got reported that they weren't seeing the full file or something.
We're in ongoing conversations with all of those groups, Bamboo and the Board of Pharmacy, and all of the groups that are involved
Okay.
are having a conversation. We're working through that. It's a process and work.
And also my staff has been working on educating, when we contact pharmacists that we find have not complied with the mandate.
Okay.
And we put it on our website, and I believe it was in the last newsletter too, and we'll continue doing that.
So how does that work when you see a pharmacist or pharmacy there's a gap, or do
It's
y'all
an
reach out to
education
them?
phone call, definitely, and make them
And-
aware of it and
Okay.
educate them to make sure that they understand that they do need to be clicking to view the report. And what happens when they click view report is it pulls up the patient's controlled substance history,
Right,
which is really what needs to be happening.
right. Not just the
Right, not just the,
metrics. Okay,
right,
okay.
But all of you need to know we're in the education mode right
Right.
now.
Yeah.
And that's the philosophy that we have at the board. Now, it will change from education to non-education if it doesn't get better. But Linda and her team are doing a fantastic job. And they are making those education calls just to say, this is what you need to be doing. Are you aware of that?
So there's any reporting on how many times this is happening? I mean, is it getting better, worse, same? Is that something we should have, or just for awareness?
we are seeing some, of course, that we're reaching out to.
You like
It's
a
hard to
percentage
say
or-
on a percentage because we're doing this on a very small scale. When you look at the big picture, just like I reported the millions of dispensations that we get, and I just have a couple of staff that are doing this part-time, with their other duties. So,
I
just,
think if you'll give us some time.
yeah, I can
Our-
get some
our big-
numbers for you.
Our big problem was when we started, we had May, June, July, August data.
Yeah.
They started making phone calls on those, and we realized real quickly that how can we call a pharmacy for May, June, and July data and expect them to correct that?
Yeah.
That's not possible. And we had some friends in the pharmacy world in Texas that helped bring us up to date and bring us into reality there. So Linda's team then started in August, and we have real data that we can call and say, you're not doing this now. So we need probably a quarter or 2 quarters or 3 quarters to look at, and that'll be part of her report in the future.
Okay,
As far as,
Yeah, I think the screenshots on the site's really good. It's pretty clear. Look at, too, right? I didn't know if this was, like, you do X number, what percentage of them were a problem? So we, is it small or big, does it get better, that kind of stuff. Education's important.
we have seen some numbers go down, and we hope they continue to go down.
Great, thank you.
Do you have an estimate of how many phone calls are made in a week?
Well, it's not just a phone call. This is a manual process. So we're identifying some of the prescriptions to look at to see if they were in compliance by looking at some of the ones that come back from meeting the threshold because they're, we consider them to be higher risk, so we want them to be checked. And for example, in October, we conducted a total number of lookup audits of 294 so far for the end of the month. And September 243, August 395. So again, it just varies because it's a manual process. We look them up, then we have to look them up in the system. We have to if we see if we don't find that there was a lookup in the system, then we reach out to the pharmacy and actually get a hard copy of the prescription to make sure that it even was a prescription that qualified for a lookup, make sure it wasn't an exception, and then go from there, so. Yeah.
There's a whole
it
lot
is,
of things.
right. Yeah.
Thank you.
They've got 60 million prescriptions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, we appreciate everything that you're doing. All right. Megan, you want to give us a report on the appeals?
So the first one would be the Garrett appeal, and you've heard about this one for the past couple of years. This is the case where the two physicians sued TSBP and TNF regarding the prohibition from physicians dispensing from office practices. There was a favorable ruling from the district court that dismissed the case, but the plaintiffs appealed to the Third Court of Appeals in Austin. And an attorney from the Office of the Attorney General, Solicitor General's office has been appointed to handle this case for us. The court decided not to conduct oral arguments, so the appeal will be decided on the briefs. And the appeal was set for submission on the briefs on September 20th with 3 justices. And this basically means that the case will be decided sometime after that date. And then we have Whole Women's Health concerning the pre-Roe ban. And you've heard about this one at the last board meeting as well. This case was in regard to what is commonly referred to as the pre-Roe ban on abortion. And attorneys from the Office of the Attorney General and Office of the Solicitor General have been appointed to handle this case. In June, plaintiffs filed in district court for declaratory judgment and application for temporary restraining order and temporary injunction against the Attorney General, the executive directors of the Texas Medical Board, Texas Board of Nursing, Texas Pharmacy Board, the executive commissioner of the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, and several district attorneys. On October 5th, the plaintiffs filed a voluntary non-suit dismissing without prejudice with their original petition. And the Texas Supreme Court then dismissed the Office of Solicitor General's petition for writ of mandamus as moot. So this case has ended at this time. We have CBS 8336, and they have appealed the board order that was entered as a result of the hearing that was held at SOAH, and then your adoption of the proposed order at the May board meeting. And this case is in the 455th District Court in Travis County. An attorney from the Attorney General's office has been appointed to handle this case. And a hearing was held on September 12th, and we are now waiting on a decision on that. And we have Lumen Farm Co. and Jonah Russian. And this case is in federal district court. Lumen Pharmacy and Jonah Russian, the PIC, had an IC in March of 2021 regarding alleged non-therapeutic dispensing. And they chose not to enter into the proposed review board order from the IC. And the board staff filed and served notice for a hearing at the State Office of Administrative Hearings. The SOAH hearing has occurred at this point. The lawsuit alleges that the red flag factors rule is discriminatory and the unlawful administration of disciplinary proceedings. And an attorney from the Attorney General's office has been appointed to handle this case. On June 16th, the Attorney General's office filed a motion to dismiss. In July, the plaintiffs filed a response brief and the OAG filed a reply brief. And there have been no updates in this case since the August board meeting. And then lastly, we have Lightcare RX's appeal, and the pharmacy and PIC for this case filed a petition in the Travis County District Court to appeal the board orders that were entered in May following the SOAH hearing. And this is a failure to operate case. And an attorney from the Attorney General's office has been appointed to handle this case. On August 8th, the Office of the Attorney General filed a plea of jurisdiction request for hearing and original answer. That's all of our cases.
All right. Any questions for Megan? All right, we'll move to E5. Ms. Ann, you want to give us an update on the building?
Welcome, everybody.
Good morning.
I have a couple of updates. One, we're there. Yay! We are almost all moved in. We do have some offices that are waiting for some furniture that we have ordered. We were notified that the second shipment should be delivered this week, so we're looking at installations hopefully sometime in the next 2 weeks. And then we can get out of our purple move totes. Right now, the offices are living very moment to moment. And so hopefully all staff will be in their full setup soon. Parking, they are pouring concrete right now. So we are hoping very soon to be able to park under our building. We've been told that the parking under our building is for staff who work in that building only. It will not be visitor parking. Visitor parking will be restricted to Garage R, which is across the street. Staff's very excited about that. So hopefully that will happen sometime in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Additionally, the mall parking will be open at the same time, approximately. They told us one thing, and then what I've heard is that there's an opening ceremony that they're waiting on before they open it. So I'm not real sure which way that's gonna go, but sometime in the next 30 days, we'll have parking in the mall, which is still not clear on exactly who can or cannot park here. I've heard both ways, but the last thing I heard from the security officer is that they were restricting visitor parking to Garage R entirely. I'm not sure. We'll give you more details as you can, but that is that. The other thing that I just wanted to check in with y'all is security at the building. If you get questions, this is what it is. We have a secure building. They are not allowed past the reception desk without a badge. And that badge has to actually badge you through the turnstiles. So we have people who have come to visit us. They are stuck at reception, and that is the way that building is going to be ad nauseum. There is no change to that due to the people who are in that building. So if you have people asking questions, they go to the reception desk, they say who they're there to see, they will call us, one of us will come down and talk to them. If they need to come up, we will walk them up, but it is restricted to staff taking people up if they don't have a state of Texas badge that allows them through. So if you get questions, that is in truth, that's the way it is. They will not be changing that. It's affected our things as simple as FedEx. We have to go down and get our FedEx because they will not allow FedEx to pass the gate. So just if you have questions, that is in fact what's happening, because I've had some people make some comments, and I apologize that this is the way that is. Unfortunately, this is not our building. We just are a tenant here. This is TFC's policy for this building. So there's not a lot we can do about that. The second thing that I wanted to do is, if you don't mind, I would like to take a moment to call out some people who are vital to this move. One is our IT team. Orain Douglas, Todd Hayek, and Devin Wilson were instrumental. They spent very long hours here trying to get our networks up and running. After hours, on weekend if it needed, multiple days. It was due to their planning and due diligence that we were down for such a minimal amount of time, because really compared to the way other agencies have talked, we were down for a very small amount of time. So that is very much huge kudos go to them for that. I also wanted to make you aware of David Hardy and Misty Anderson. They were, oh man, they were such rocks on the actual move days that we had limited people who could be here, and they both stepped up way beyond anything that you ever would expect of them. So we owe them a very big thank you. It would not have progressed the way it did without them. The other people that I want to thank are the people on the move committee. These were people that were either voluntold or volunteered for their individual teams to help us prepare. Lily Moreno, Amy Burt, Rachel Glass, Nelma Sanchez, Jessica Reyes, and Sophia Bishop. The reason that it went so smooth is because of the prep that they did with their teams, and they got us where we needed to be on move day, to where when the movers came in, we could say, look, just do this, just do this, just do this. And it made it very smooth. I have some certificates that I made that I invite y'all to sign if you wish to say thanks. After the board meeting's over, kind of like a card, but not a card because that one's a little bit more free. But we would like to really emphasize how important they were to the process and just publicly thank them for everything they did.
I think you left off a really, really big name,
Yes, you did.
and that's yourself. None of this would have gone the way that it did. I know that, you know, you put in countless hours and, you know, nonstop days, getting things organized and keeping people on track, keeping us informed. And you're right, the downtime was super minimal compared to what other agencies saw. But a whole debt of gratitude goes to you. I will also say that, you know, when the movers got there and all they had to do was, you know, the purple totes were out lined up. Tim spent a lot of hours moving so that it was super, super smooth. So, you know, we really thank both of y'all. I know that, you know, we provided lunch to the staff, and I wanted to really let y'all know how much the staff really appreciated knowing that we were there to support them. You know, Donnie was there for the move, and Jenny, myself, and you know, it made a world of difference knowing that the board was there with the staff.
They were very excited.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it was a big deal to them. For some of them, it's the first time they've met you. So it meant a lot to them.
So we, again, thank you for everything that you've done. I'm looking forward to that parking. I'm not gonna hold my breath like I'm on set.
Hey, Ann,
Sometime soon, but do you have any questions?
I just had one. What is lacking? I know you got the keys all handled, but that was a big issue during the move. Remember that you didn't have all the keys that you needed. Is there anything that's you're waiting to get completed, or is it all set like you planned or you wanted it?
So it is still an active construction site.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So there are things that are not available to us at this time because they have not been completed or we're not on the timeline yet. One of those that's really important for us right now is that meeting room. As soon as that's up, Lily and I will be on there and we will be snagging any date that we need to because we would really love to have the board meetings at the building. Again, I've heard mixed things on that. So that's something that would be really beneficial for us, enable us to have our staff meetings and board meetings there again. Parking was a big deal. We're almost there. We are still having some growing pains just for mostly processes. I think is kind of where we are right now.
Okay.
Very, very minor things. Shelving units. You know, we will all be glad when all of our furniture is surplus and our new furniture is in. You know, little things like that. But right now we have two masters because we have a general contractor that hasn't turned the building over yet because they're still building it. And we have TFC that's the owner of the building that wants to get everything done, but they're trying to hold hands and make it all happen.
Okay.
It's been really smooth. And I can't say enough, Julie thanked Ann, but Ann worked for months and months and months before. And then for about 5 days, she ate it and slept it around the clock. And if Ann had not been the one in charge, we would not be where we are and as smooth as it happened. So.
Because is it true that, you know, during that time period, we were in transition from Guadalupe to there? What was it, 3 days during that weekend that we were, you know, not actually fully in play until the next Monday?
Mhm.
Was it like 3 days?
We moved IT on Friday.
And everybody worked from home on
I worked from home on Monday.
Right.
And then the movers were there Tuesday, Wednesday. And then y'all were there on Thursday.
Right.
So
That was
out of the
incredible.
office, kind of nomads for about 3 business days.
3, that's what I thought it was, about 3 days.
Which is really a good point because, you know, we recognize, key people, but really the whole staff,
Yeah.
through the transition.
They were so positive.
They were very positive and, they couldn't be in their office, which their office wasn't there anymore. So they were working from home. And really not a step was missed, so.
And I will add that, I mean, our staff were just phenomenal. I mean, I'm sure you've all moved. It's like one of the 3 most stressful things that you can have, and you expect people to be grumpy and not happy or stressed or anxious. And we had people that were stressed and we were anxious, and they were just wonderful. They didn't take it out on people. They were extremely patient. They saw the limitations, and we just have some really fabulous people that work for the board.
I recall, Ann, from a previous meeting, there was discussion about the mailroom not being a concern, I guess, because it was not on ground level or something. I guess that all got rectified and.
So, we utilize, the state mail service in this building. We actually have access to it. So, it eliminated a lot of our concerns about mail.
Okay, great.
Our mail's getting consistently delivered every day at a specific time frame. There's 1 or 2 people who come do it. I have a lot of conversations with him.
Correct.
He's a totally lovely person.
So then that was my next
Yeah.
question. Were there any disruptions in mail service that license holders or anything should be concerned about?
Put the right address. That's the biggest thing right now, is just, we're trying the best we can to get out as much as we can. We have moved. We are not at 333 anymore. There is no mail being delivered there.
And it's still on Google, Guadalupe.
Yeah.
But we have reported it multiple times. So any of your colleagues, anybody that's watching, we're no longer on Guadalupe, we're at Congress. But it is still on Google. If you Google it, it still says Guadalupe, but we have reported it.
I know for one of my October licenses, when I printed it off, it still had the Guadalupe on it.
It's one of the little things that we're still working on. All of the renewal notices have the new address on there.
Okay, good.
All of the disciplinary letters have it on there and had it on there for 2 months before we moved.
Yeah.
So we're trying the best we can. If you run across something that is not updated, please shoot me an email, and we will try and fix it. Once we started looking, it's like, wow, we
It's
have
a
a
lot
lot
of
of documents out there that have our
Yeah,
address.
absolutely. Well, thank you.
So,
Did
yes.
you have many forwarding mail from the other one to the new address? Did they do that in this venue or?
Yes, and here's an interesting thing. It doesn't look like it does when you move your house. When you move your house, you have a yellow label on there that says forwarded to, blah, 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 blah. We have no idea what was forwarded or not outside of, oh, look, this has the 333 address on there. They must have delivered it to us. We did submit forwarding before the move. We are getting forwarding. However, different cities, counties do that a little differently, is what I've found. There are some mail that gets forwarded and there's some that they refuse to forward, such as like certified mail. I've had some go through forwarded, I've had some rejected forwarded. So it's hard to track for that reason. And we also don't know, is there a delay that entails? If you sent it to 333, it was forwarded, is that an immediate thing in the post office, or is that a 1 or 2 day delay? We're not real sure. Simply because the state mail system is through the CPA and they work with the post office, but not directly involved in that. So
Several of you have asked me offline about hobby building, and yesterday was the last day of the hobby building. I mean, everybody had to be out yesterday. Medical board moved last week, so there's no one left there to our knowledge. Several of you have that individually offline, so.
So are they planning an implosion or what is?
We're gonna have a party that day. We're all gonna go over and
Sit in the park.
sit in the park and watch it and drink sparkling cider or. Yeah,
Sure.
it's the plan. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Keep you back.
That'd be a nice party.
Yeah, if you can keep us updated on that and maybe the grand opening and maybe those that can be there could be there for that event. I think the other thing that kind of came out of this, if you have questions that come up from, technicians, interns, and pharmacists, is this was a good reminder to everybody of, looking at the webpage and seeing what's on there and the newsletter. Shada did a great job of getting the new sign out there. Everybody needed to have a new board sign in their pharmacies. So, it's just that good reminder that we do continually communicate out to, our licensees and make sure that they understand what the change brought.
But again, do you think of anything that we can put out there even more, please?
Reach out to us, that's
Reach
what
out
we're
to
here for.
us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we are at 10:10. How about if we do E6 and then we can take a break post that? Oh, that is correct. We have something at 10 o'clock. Let's go to E7. We'll do E7 and then we'll take our break. So if you look on the agenda on E7, we have a presentation concerning the technician certification specialty. And we have someone, Yogesh Gala, and I'm sure I said that incorrectly. So if you'll come forward and introduce yourself and.
Good morning, Austin, Texas. Thank you so much, Texas Board of Pharmacy. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Lily, for coordinating. Appreciate it. So here's the handouts. I'm gonna pass out first.
Thank you.
So, any NBA fans? No basketball? You got 3 teams here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you. Appreciate it. So, thank you once again. Been a great session so far. A lot of serious topics to be addressed. So thank you for this opportunity. So I'm here to discuss a problem that's in our practice, in our pharmacy practice, and hopefully I can present a solution with an educational program. So if you can just turn over the second page, which is really the first slide, which says specialty practice in retail. So this slide pretty much shows a lot of the drugs, a lot of the specialty meds for serious chronic conditions, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, HIV, cancer. They end up coming to retail first. And there's so many retail pharmacies as compared to a tiny number of specialty pharmacies that the retail pharmacy becomes the entrance for these all of these drugs. And there are so many, lot more that I couldn't fit them in that slide, but this is a problem we're gonna address. So, do we think that do we have sufficient expertise or clinical knowledge within the retail staff, pharmacy techs as well as pharmacy, to either take care of these patients or at least probably channelize the patients or probably navigate them. So this is what brings us to a scenario where there is need of advanced education. Are there anybody here from the retail pharmacy? All right, so a lot of them. So that's I'm pretty sure they might resonate of what I'm talking about. I started my journey as a retail pharmacist myself, and I figured, and now that I'm specialty, I figured, what there were so many instances that we couldn't take care of the patients the way we should have been. Imagine a patient walking into a pharmacy, an HIV patient, asking for a refill for Prescobex, and your pharmacy staff enters the order for the Prescobex, not realizing that he or she is also on something called Edurant or a Truvada that should go with the Prescobex. Taking, if there's a combination regimen and taking just one and not both may lead to the treatment failure. How about somebody who got a needle stick injury, or a sexually assaulted patient who walks into the pharmacy for a PEP regimen, post-exposure prophylaxis? How time sensitive is that? if the treatment does not start within 72 hours, the person may get infected with HIV. How about a patient with a capecitabine, somebody newly diagnosed with colorectal cancer, walks into a pharmacy with a prescription of capecitabine, and then the insurance says drug not covered or prior authorization required. Does the pharmacy staff in the retail is aware that the patient is also enrolled in Medicare Part B, and they would have just processed through Medicare Part B, it goes through. Things like that. Are they aware of supplemental insurance? Are they able to provide the financial assistance for a copay that's unaffordable? So there are so many of these issues that are not addressed. And the reason is, there's nobody to blame here because there's no educational program so far. There are a lot of there are some educational programs that the company might have tried to bring up, especially in some companies that have specialty pharmacies or some healthcare system based specialty pharmacies. But majority of the drugs come into the retail. The number just outcasts the tiny number of the specialty pharmacy. So I'm here to express to present my it's really not about presenting the program or trying to present like a sales pitch, but it's really about presenting my gratitude towards the profession of pharmacy. The profession of pharmacy is highly respected by people. Millions of people walk into their pharmacies. They trust their pharmacists and the pharmacy technicians for advice. They trust them with their prescription. They talk to the pharmacist about the drug interactions, side effects, OTC recommendations, immunizations, etc. So this is really all about gratitude that me and my company, STCB, my team has launched 2 courses. The first one is called CTSP. This one is a comprehensive assessment-based certificate course, and it covers all of the aspects that every pharmacy technician should be aware of. It starts with what is specialty pharmacy, types of specialty pharmacy, then it talks about intake processes. Then we go into the clinical disease states, talking about several chronic inflammatory conditions, HIV, hepatitis C, oncology, MS, and on, hyperlipidemia. Then we talk about drugs, treatments, third-party considerations, prior authorizations, financial assistance, accreditations, legal matters, compliance, and finally patient care management, onboarding. So this course is sold to people online for $199 initial taking, and they need to renew it every 2 years because it's a continuous assessment base, and the renewal is $149. The second course that we're about to launch in the next 4 to 6 weeks is more catered for billing criteria, things like quantity, indications, the day supply, some of the third-party criteria. Imagine a prescription of Stellara comes into a retail. What is the loading dose? What is the maintenance dose? What day supply? Which plan to bill, and so on. So the second course is called Specialty in Retail, and that's sold for $39. And there is no this course is not supposed to be renewed. It's only single time. So these are the 2 courses we have launched with a hope to find a solution to the problem. So I'm here to lay out my expectation to the board of either adopting CTSP as an optional course for all of the pharmacy technicians. Whoever are interested, it shouldn't be a burden on the pharmacy techs who are already burdened by some of the other national certifications. So either that or just endorse STCB to people who are interested in making a difference in the field of patient care.
Thank you
That's
so
about
much for
it.
the presentation.
Thank you, and I'm open to any questions. Let me just wipe out my sweat because I was so nervous.
Are there any questions for him? All right, well, there are no actions, but I'm sorry.
Is this a CE based too, or?
Yes, so as of now, we're not ACPE accredited, so it is in the process. It is a very complex process, so it might take about a year or 2 from now, but it's in the works. So once we're ACP approved, that's when the technicians will get the CE credits.
Are you partnering with any schools, anything like that?
Nothing yet. So this is, we're just trying to approach the board.
And where are you based?
Miami?
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, with that, it is now 10:20. We can take if back with, you have that little code, let's take a 20-minute break and be back at 10:40. ahead, we'll leave E6 for a moment, Megan, if that's okay, and we'll go ahead and go down to E8. And we have Zahir Saparza, and you're gonna help me with that pronunciation.
Muslim Sarfraz.
All right, if you can introduce yourself and
Sure.
that's okay, and we'll go ahead.
I'm Seher Muslim Sarfraz. I'm traveling from San Antonio, Texas. So nice to meet you all.
All right, go ahead and have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a foreign pharmacy graduate. I have passed all the required board exam for licensure. I'm here to petition for amendment to Articles 283.4 and 283.7 to accommodate extreme and extenuating circumstances an applicant may face. In this case, I am facing. I passed my NAPLEX in March of 2021. In just 10 days after passing NAPLEX, I took the MPJ, but unsuccessfully. I learned I had to prepare better for the MPJ, but in the meantime, while preparing for my second attempt, my husband started having health problems. With constant testing, doctor's appointments, and biopsies for months, he was finally and sadly diagnosed with multiple myeloma and amyloidosis, a rare type of blood cancer. Being the sole caretaker, I couldn't concentrate or dedicate enough time to MPJ because of his health issues. That included 5 months of weekly chemotherapy followed by a bone marrow transplant. Having said that, he's still going through the chemotherapy process, but I refocused and took the MPJ and passed in August, and I started my internship. But unfortunately, my internship may not be completed before the expiration of my NAPLEX. The current law here doesn't accommodate for extenuating circumstances like my husband's illness. I request the board to amend these articles by either extending the NAPLEX validity to more than 2 years like other states like New York, New Jersey, Michigan, or by giving the executive director the authority to extend the exam validity on case-by-case basis based on extreme circumstances. No one is ever prepared for these type of circumstances. We don't know what the future holds for us, but I really want to finish my licensing process, be a licensed, and I'm just ready to go. So I know, just happy to be here, and I wanted to have my word out. Thank you for listening to me.
Do we have any questions?
What are any options here, I guess I should say?
Megan, you wanna?
Sure. You, you always have the option of amending your rule. However, unfortunately, in her circumstances, you wouldn't be able to adopt a rule in time before the expiration date of the hours there. Staff doesn't really recommend amending the rule in this way. Other than that, there aren't really any options to help in her specific circumstance, which I'm so sorry. It'll expire, I believe, in
March of 2020, next year. But there should be something. It was not under my control, and I really worked hard. NAPLEX, these are not small exams. Money, time, and everything. So there should be something for situations like this. That's what my only thing is, because I don't want this exam to go to waste.
So Megan, perhaps for future discussion, what are our current requirements? What is the timeline specifically? And is that consistent with kind of other states' requirements? Do we have any ideas?
I'm not sure about other states. Our requirements are 2 years. So internship hours are good for 2 years and tests are good for 2 years. Applied across the board to everyone in the same manner. We'd have to look, if you wanted us to, we can look into the timelines for other states that we haven't.
like some states have like 5 years, 3 years, depending. But the timeline here starts like, we have to take 2 exams, NAPLEX and MPJ. So it starts when, in my, suggestion, if it would start when you pass both the exams, because the timeline of 2 years starts as soon as you take one exam and you pass it, then it's 2-year clock starts. So you have to pass the other exam, plus you have to finish 40 hours, which is not, little, a lot of hours, and you have to get internship also. So thank God I got my internship, but what is hurting and is just frustrating that my NAPLEX is on the line, which I really, really worried about. So I just don't want this exam to just be expired just for, So I would really request the board to do something in my situation.
And I should probably clarify, for the intern hours, they expire 2 years from the date the internship is completed.
Oh, okay.
It's not,
Okay.
when you earn that hour.
Very good, thank you.
This is a common occurrence, happen very often? Would it be something you have to address?
To our knowledge, no. We have a request occasionally. I think Megan said it the best. It's very difficult in this situation because even if y'all wanted to make a change,
It's not gonna affect her.
it's gonna be after hers expires. Even if you wanted to entertain us discussing and looking at what other states do and that kind of stuff and bringing something back to you, then that would be a February and a May and not effective till June. So you're talking,
Beyond the.
you're talking
expiration.
beyond. And I feel for it too. I know how hard I worked to get my Netflix, just like all of you did.
What happens after this time then? What are you gonna do when nothing happens?
Take the NAPLEX again. I'm not gonna stop, but it's just hard,
I can imagine.
And my husband is right here. We traveled all the way and, so it's not that his illness has ended or anything.
Sure.
It's a going process. I have 3 children. So I'm a caretaker and, I have to have a job. You don't know what future is for me. So I can control the situation. And I don't want to leave this because I worked hard and I want to do it and I enjoy it. So I request the board, anything can be done. They can freeze my NAPLEX for like a couple of, I don't know, anything. I will really appreciate it and for future people as well.
But I don't think you have any options. You're gonna want to do that, right?
In relation to this score,
Right.
that's correct.
Or we can try to take some steps for future, and we could bring something back based on your question. Maybe,
What other states are doing?
and maybe draft something for future, but we don't have any option, I don't believe, right? Even if you wanted to.
At this point, we do not. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your
You
time.
could bring it forward so we can try to do something.
Yeah. All right, Megan, we can go back to E6.
So behind E6, you'll find a chart. At the last board meeting, you requested information on the legal landscape in light of the Dobbs decision, and staff had prepared that chart behind E6 that features some of the Texas laws that are in play and then some federal guidance. As you're likely aware, there are differing opinions about how all of this works, about how the Texas abortion laws work together. There are unresolved questions regarding the interplay between state abortion laws and federal and constitutional law. There are ongoing lawsuits. So in a lot of ways, this landscape is in flux. Each pharmacist must use their professional judgment in dispensing a valid prescription while meeting all applicable federal and state statutes and rules. And pharmacists should consider consulting with an attorney if they have questions regarding the legality of dispensing a prescription under specific circumstances.
So this was informational for us. This is what we asked him to be brought forward. I think you did a great job in putting this together. I think that as things change, it might be worth updating and bringing forward, but I think you did a great job of putting this together for us. Is there any question?
We Appreciate you coming back to this with it. I think it was just, from my sense, it was just to give the public a chance to make, to say anything if they needed to during open meeting. So that's what all it was. But I appreciate you getting this together. It's confusing for everybody.
All right.
Will something like this be published on our website, or is there, do we have any information currently published?
No. Yes and no. So this chart is available on our website as attached to the board meeting
Right,
agenda.
right.
So it is out there in that way. But no, we haven't issued anything that's like guidance because we really can't advise
Yeah.
people on what
Right.
to do.
But as the information shared here, I mean, I think this might be valuable to the public. And I don't know that they'll know to go to the agenda to look for this.
We will look at that. That's a very tough area.
I understand.
Ultimately, it's about documentation. We think about documentation, whatever decision you decide to make. I think documentation sometimes was lacking. People make decisions, so that's really, they should be doing, besides guiding them on what to decide, with documentation support. What you went through to make your decision.
Because it is your professional judgment.
Right. So I think that's the main call out, is to make sure you document well.
Right. Ms. Caroline, I believe we're up next with
Okay, these are the reports at section F. The first is the closed complaints report at F.1. So the chart at F.1 is the report on complaints closed in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 22. So this was June through August, and it does provide the completed fiscal year 22 total complaints closed. The top chart, it also details the method of closure, whether that was by some disposition other than formal disciplinary action. And then at the bottom of the chart of 1 is those complaints closed with some type of disciplinary action. The bottom of the page is a breakdown of the method of closure in each category from that disciplinary order versus non-disciplinary action, with a comparison of the first quarter of of each quarter of FY22 year to date. The second page is the same information, comparing the fourth quarter FY22 with the quarterly averages from prior fiscal year, fiscal year 21, with the percent change from the fourth quarter year to date to the previous year.
Are there any questions for Caroline on this report?
We can look at the next report, which is your open complaints. This is at F.2. Chart number 1 provides the end of fiscal year 22 data for the complaints received, a comparison from the prior fiscal year, the number of complaints closed with a percentage comparison there. It also includes the agency's resolution time for FY22. And the second chart at the bottom of the page is your breakdown of open complaints by age. As of October 10th, 2022, these are the complaints that you have open with their age categories.
Why do you think on FY22 chart 1, it's a 32% increase? Or is it, I guess it's quite a few. Why do you think that is? Or
there could be a lot of reasons. I think that pharmacies certainly were a lot busier in the post-COVID or COVID times, when it became a lot busier.
Okay.
Just across the board, we did look at a little bit of this data for Tim, and just wasn't any particular area, but just every single area had more
Issues.
yeah. So more,
We tried to look for spikes, Donnie, to see if there was any one area that we needed to focus more on, and there was not when we looked at the data.
just everything had more.
So Caroline, with there being 1,900 more complaints, is that a manageable workload still for your team?
I think time will tell. I think you're gonna see some changes in chart 2 in the coming months. And it's something we'll have to look at.
I think the good thing is when you look at the average time, it's continued to go down. So the staff has done an exceedingly good job of really managing it. I would say, and this is just kind of an anecdotal, I would guess if you looked at complaints in all areas of service industry, I bet you probably see similar trends. I just kind of see that going on in the general public. So hopefully they'll start to go down. But I think it is something we do need to watch to make sure that we are staying appropriately staffed and we're taking care of things in a timely manner so that things are addressed for the public. Any other questions for Caroline?
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a individual who did ask to speak in relation to this. Hasib Abdullah, you'll come forward.
Madam President, Board of Managers, my name is Hasib Abdullah. I'm commenting on complaint number 0222-02641. Briefly, it was.
I'm sorry, are you planning to comment on a particular complaint?
Yeah, that's been finalized now.
So that would not be agendized for us. This agenda item is just for the reports that Ms. Hotchkiss put forward. It's not, do you have comments on the particular report?
Well, in general, I do, but I'm saying it's based on a complaint that was closed during this fiscal quarter. This quarter. I think the chair has.
So, you can't go to the complaint itself, but if you have how it's presented within this report, you can make comments on that.
It dovetails into the report for sure. It's based on the grievous nature of this complaint that was disclosed with a warning letter. I think open meetings laws under 551, if this gets close to the agenda item, I believe I can speak about it. It will dovetail into the report specifically. I will cite those statistics.
Okay, let's see if you can keep with the report and then we'll go.
Oh, okay, well, can I, Chair, Madam President, can I speak a little bit about the complaint and why I'm speaking about the report? Can you give a little bit of background why I'm here?
Very brief.
Okay, very briefly, back in October 2021, a family member went in for a flu shot at a retail pharmacy and came out and got an incorrect vaccine, COVID booster. It's a totally different vaccine. The pharmacist in charge was very dismissive. Spoke to retail pharmacists, and they said it's a very rare situation. And spoke with actually Open Records Department here at the board, where we confirmed that this is the first in history of something like this ever happening, a totally different vaccine given to another person. So I filed a complaint. And come to find out several months later, the enforcement project manager, enforcement program manager, said he would allow me to have some talk about, whether this would be a warning letter. He kind of said it was going to be a warning letter from the very get-go. I've seen the statistics that warning letters are the vast majority of them. I think this past fiscal year, 5% of cases were complaints that went to some type of disciplinary action. And this program manager had stated to me that he would, in writing and actually verbally, that he would not go forward, at least. And the complainant never has a say in what goes on. This is ultimately the board and enforcement who determines what happens. That promise wasn't adhered to. The actual complaint didn't make much sense to me. The compliance analysis, there's typos, and there's wasn't exactly sure who was being warned in the first place. Reached out to the executive director, is an executive assistant, never got responded to. So the reason I'm saying this is this: as a Texas taxpayer, when you have something so egregious, there should be a more robust enforcement mechanism. I know you guys were just talking about that they're overworked, maybe, but when something that never has come across the Texas board is just simply, substantially a one-page warning letter. I don't think that's what Texas taxpayers charge or expect, and I don't think that's what the pharmacists, pharmacies, and pharmaceutical technicians, who 99.99% do a great job, make sure nothing like this happens, and they're great pains to nothing that happens. That one-off that does happen, and not in this case, so I'm not going to speak about this in general. I think many of those 5% that went to disciplinary orders, I could be corrected if I'm wrong, I'm a layman, were mostly criminal convictions or previous agreed orders. And I just think that over 28 million people live in Texas. I think a lot of those complaints are being dismissed or warned, like in this case. And I think that if, not to offend anyone here, but I believe that when sunset happens, if the board just feels that enforcement is proper and where it is right now, that perhaps maybe go into another agency that has a more robust, efficient enforcement mechanism that honors the work of pharmacies, pharmacists, and technicians, and people of Texas. Thank you for your time and service.
All right. I believe that our next person is not quite here yet. Should we just go to G2, Megan, and give him a little bit more time?
Sure, we can do that. Okay. So, as you're all likely aware, Amy sent you the information associated with the items under G in a link to your emails. And then the charts have also been put on your laptops for easy access. And these are all of the agreed for orders, default orders, and remedial plans that have either been entered by the executive director or are being proposed to you now. So G.2 is a report of all of the orders that have been entered by the executive director. These are the ones that you have authorized the executive director to enter. And this item does not need a vote, it's just here for your information. So if you don't have any questions on those in G.2, we'll move on to the next one. G.3 are the proposed agreed board orders and default orders, and G.4 are the proposed remedial plans. These include both orders and remedial plans resulting from informal conferences and those proposed by mail per your previous instructions. You'll notice the orders resulting from an informal conference. The chart indicates the board members that were at that informal conference. If you participated in that informal conference, we will automatically recuse you from that vote. And unless you have any questions about these charts and these orders, we would need a motion to approve the proposed agreed board orders and default orders and the proposed remedial plans. So that's items G.3 and G.4.
Any questions? We have a motion. Motion from Johnny. Second from Ian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I think our next person will be here in a moment. How about if we can do H1 really quick. So H1 is items we placed on the agenda for the February 7th board meeting. I'd like to see if anybody has anything that they would like to have discussed? And if not, I will put forth something for us to discuss. Go ahead.
I know there was some talk at one point about having a discussion about mail order pharmacies, shipping conditions and that kind of thing, and I was thinking something would be on the agenda for this meeting, but maybe I was just looking for a futuristic meeting. So I don't know if that's something that we need to discuss further, but I know there was discussion at one time about that.
And I think that was the District 6, 7, 8 meeting that, packaging and that. So we can definitely put that on there as a discussion item for February. And see if we can get forth some information maybe from, different, individuals that can, like, as far as like those cards and stuff.
So do you want it broad, like shipping in general? Or do you want us to just focus on mail order pharmacy? Because to me, this is more than just a mail order pharmacy issue.
It is, if we're talking about
So I
integrity
just
of
want to make sure what you want
medications,
us to look
if we're
at.
talking about integrity of medications, it applies to all storage
Anything
that
that's shipped.
occurs during shipping.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure.
Okay, anybody else? So I would like to go ahead and add on there, I think that COVID has had a lot of impact on a lot of different things. And one of the things that I think it's had an impact on is our pharmacy students. And, the time that they spent possibly studying remotely and everything, and just a little bit of what we're seeing with both the MPJE and the NABLEX as far as passing rates. So our current rates, the minute you fail one or the other, your internship license is null and void. And I think that kind of in some of the things that I've seen, maybe that's something that we can review. I think there's value in somebody as they're studying to still be able to, be under the supervision and learning. So I'd like to add that on our agenda for February 7th to look at, just reviewing and discussing as a group. Is Mr. I just lost his name, Sanders here?
He's not, Madam President.
All right, we will give him a little bit more time then. As far as H2, just things that are coming up, I want to make sure that everyone's aware of the informal conference hearings and those dates. We do have, thanks to Amy, and I will call out the fact that I think she did an awesome job. All slots are filled, so do make sure that you have all of those dates on your calendar so that we can uphold our obligations that way. I do want to recognize the fact that we had several people go to District 6, 7, and 8. Rick was there, Donnie was there, Lori and myself. So I would encourage you, as meetings come up, Tim and I went to Multicon to participate fully with those organizations meetings so that we can really garner more information and be able to see what other boards are doing, because it is all about protecting the public and making sure that we are the best board that we can be. The other thing, and I'll say this and then we may just break for a couple minutes, is yesterday ended Pharmacy Month. I think it's important that we recognize as a board what our technicians, interns, and pharmacists do every single day. They do take care of the public, and they do it with grace and compassion. And if you read the newsletter, there was a thank you to the pharmacists for and staff for all that they do. But I think that it's good for us at this time to just recognize, and I know the governor made an official declaration for a pharmacy day. But just wanted to acknowledge the fact that we did put that in the newsletter, and we're very appreciative of all the jobs that they do. So,
Madam President will not tell you this, but she's getting special recognition this weekend.
top women in grocery, so.
Congratulations.
So John? This is G1 on the agenda. You're following the agenda.
All right. Board members, on July 27th, 2022, a proposal for a decision was issued by an administrative law judge, or an ALJ, of the State Office of Administrative Hearings in the matter of contested case, Texas State Board of Pharmacy versus Jesse Cornell Sanders. For procedural history, Mr. Sanders held pharmacist license 19-454, which was revoked on February 2nd, 2016. At that time, he had a case go to SOAH in 2015, and the ALJ recommended the revocation of Mr. Sanders' license based on findings of fact that Mr. Sanders participated in the non-therapeutic dispensing and delivering of approximately 80 prescriptions for Norco tablets, and that he violated a temporary suspension order on July 7th, 2015, when he was witnessed inside a pharmacy. We were back at SOAH this time because Mr. Sanders was requesting the reinstatement of his pharmacist license. Well, the ALJ found by the preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Sanders, who had the burden of proof in this case, since he was the one requesting his license back, did not prove his license should be reinstated. At the hearing, board staff presented evidence of Mr. Sanders' interview with a board investigator, documents showing his past history with the board, including a prior license revocation in 1984, and Mr. Sanders himself also testified at the hearing. The ALJ found that Mr. Sanders has not demonstrated that he used the 7 years since his revocation to rehabilitate himself to be able to practice pharmacy in a manner consistent with the public's health, safety, and welfare. Nor did he use that period of time to learn from the gravity of the acts for which his license was revoked. The judge found that Mr. Sanders indicated he would not have done anything differently because he believed he did everything right. The judge also indicated that he showed no remorse for his actions, that he denied any wrongdoing, and trivialized the dangers of opioids. The judge also noted that he failed to recognize the significant impact his actions had on the public's health, safety, and welfare by increasing the potential for harm to the public by the likely exposure to large quantities of diverted drugs. The ALJ found Mr. Sanders did not meet his burden in establishing he has the competency or present fitness to engage in the practice of pharmacy. As such, the ALJ recommended the board deny the reinstatement. Therefore, consistent with the ALJ's recommendation, board staff is asking the board to deny Mr. Sanders' petition for the reinstatement of his pharmacist license. Board staff has prepared a board order reflecting that recommendation, and staff urges the board to adopt that order. Any questions?
Do we have an update on Mr. Sanders?
He apparently ran out of gas on his way here, and as indicated, he will not be attending.
All right, so you've heard the evidence and the staff's recommendation. Do we have a recommendation or a motion?
I move to approve such order.
Second.
So we have a movement or a motion from Lori and a second from Donnie to approve the staff's recommendations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. If there is no other business or matters, all right. It's a very big QR code too. The QR code is on the door. There are 3 hours of CE available with the QR code. I will take a motion to adjourn. Rick Fish has made a motion to adjourn. Ian has second. All those in favor?
Fine.
Any opposed? This meeting stands adjourned.